American education is in free fall, folks. Test scores are continuing to drop despite billions of additional tax dollars being spent each year. A recent Gallup Walton Foundation poll showed that only 1 in 5 American adults believe our schools are effectively preparing the next generation for the future. There are a number of reasons for this decline in satisfaction and effectiveness. Teachers' unions, who are little more than a militant political infrastructure of the far left, continue to dominate public education policy in many places. The multi-billion-dollar ed tech industry has discouraged emphasis on reading and traditional learning methods in favor of screen time. A recent Voices of Gen Z survey found that reading as a core component of the academic environment has declined significantly. Prioritizing teaching Spanish to elementary school kids and other nonsensical trends are also likely factors. But for 50% of our students who are boys, woke ideologies being embedded into the curriculum are having a detrimental effect, principally among those toxic masculinity. The trend is among the worst kind of tribalism driven by radical feminists and the left. It demonizes half the population and blames virtually all the ills of modern society on the male of the species while turning women and girls into victims of systemic oppression. Like critical race theory, Democratic-aligned groups have mainstreamed this concept into everything, including our schools. The best way to combat it is more conservative or right-leaning men entering the teaching profession. Guys, listen to me. Consider it, please. It would be a tremendous service to the nation to help wrest classrooms and school administration away from the third and fourth wave feminists who run our education complex. The lack of gender, intellectual, and political diversity in our schools is a significant problem. Educating America's young people takes more personnel than the United States military. As of 2022, there were 3.7 million K-12 teachers in the U.S. and 1.5 million university faculty. More than 3/4 of teachers are women, 77%. A staggering 89% of elementary school teachers are women. Only 23% are men, and according to data from the National Center for Education Statistics, the number of men in the classroom is down 5 points over the last decade. And who knows how many of them were actual men or masculine men. The fact that teaching is a female-dominated field, of course, isn't in and of itself a major problem, but it is also decidedly liberal. A report from the Education Freedom Institute showed that even in Republican or red states, the teaching profession is dominated by Democrats. A 2022 study shows that nearly 85% of all campaign contributions from teachers went to Democrat candidates. The American Federation of Teachers and the National Education Association, the two largest unions in the profession, are both led by radical leftist women. They spent more than $43 million between mid-2022 and mid-2024 funneling cash to woke political groups that back things like gun control, support racial equity or DEI programs, gender transitions for kids, and abortion. Just as radical feminists have created an unhealthy competitive relationship with men, left-wing teachers are creating the same adversarial relationship between schools and boys. Not only are boys often taught today that their natural inclinations are harmful, but the strategy is part of an effort to feminize and weaken the men in our society. Attacks on masculinity are an extension of radical feminism and the left's attempt to eviscerate traditional gender concepts. Why do all of this? Well, simple. Create a more pliable, passive public that can ultimately quietly acquiesce to the state. George Orwell saw it all coming. Young men, particularly white men, have been told that there is something innately wrong with them, and they should be ashamed of their whiteness. Boys have therefore been overprescribed medication to reduce their natural energy and impulses. We have lived far too long, folks, in an America where all particularly straight white men are viewed as some cross between Jeffrey Epstein and Homer Simpson. It is not a coincidence that mental health declines among boys and young men coincide with the massive spike in toxic masculinity as a through line of far-left messaging. The number of mentions and studies and papers over the last decade has increased by an order of magnitude. Now, that means that it's also being embedded in training programs and seminars and conferences for teachers. Our children spending 8 hours a day with teachers produced and supported by a left-wing ecosystem is damaging to the nation as a whole. The impacts of this can also be seen in the studies that show young men are opting not to date and are less engaged with members of the opposite sex. The scrutiny of women programmed by toxic masculinity ideology is not just off-putting, but can generate a sense of fear of being accused of predatory or harmful behavior. Make a move on a date and get rejected, you're suddenly a sexual predator, and your reputation can be toast. More conservative men accepting teaching not only as a job, but as a true vocation will help ensure boys have more male role models and more protection from these harmful ideologies. Conservative men can also better help involve fathers in the school community and learning environment. More men helping to guide young male students not only helps fill an important gap for these kids that may exist in their home life, but can also improve communication with fathers overall. May come as a shock to some, but male figures have a greater understanding of the emotions, anxieties, and challenges of adolescent boys. They naturally relate to them better. Conservative male teachers are also less likely to promote messages that demonize men or legitimize unhealthy comparisons with women. Right-leaning men reject woke ideologies and will be a firewall in schools against them. Men are leading the return to faith and religion in this country. Men are consistently more patriotic than women today, and they are leading a return to conservative values. If we are going to make America healthy, prosperous, and strong again, our failing education system must be fixed for our boys and young men. In addition to psychological and competency testing for teachers and increased accountability regimes in our schools, we need men to engage in the profession to help save it and those it is supposed to serve.